Hey, family, my name is Amanda Brown. I'm a grateful alcoholic. By the grace of God, I'm sober today. This is a hot mic. I'm just saying. I think I could stand back here. Thank y'all so much for allowing me to be a part of your 25th annual Serenity Weekend Women's Conference. That was a lot to say. And you know, it's so funny. Kimberly was so worried about what she was going to say when she was introducing me. She found one of my girls here, and I said, well, just ask her, right, and whatever. And then the God of my experience gave her something to say right there before she introduced me, right? What a cool moment. So my sobriety date is May 19th, 1991. I'm very grateful to have over 34 years sober. My home group is the Legacies Group in Montgomery, Alabama. Thank you. And I also attend the Back Porch International online group. We meet every day at noon Eastern Time. I have a sponsor, the fabulous Rena Kay, right down the road in Punta Gorda, Florida. She has over 49 years sober. We are, Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. We are planning her 50th AA anniversary party on October the 18th. And I work with alcoholics. Thank you to Miss Ann. I saw you sit somewhere over there. Thank you so much for asking me to speak and be a part of this weekend. Thank you to anybody on the committee. Anybody on the committee, from registration to T-shirts to whatever. I want you to stand up, please, so we can give you a big thank you. Stand up. Stand up. Thank you. These kind of shindigs are not put together just with one person, right? It takes a village. So I always want to thank the committee and appreciate y'all's time for putting events like this on. I want to thank Veronica, our taper in the back. Thank you. Although she's not a regular taper, I appreciate her service. I appreciate her recording this. And what a gift that she's able to do that and share that with all of us for free. That is huge. So thank you so much for that. Really, thank you. All right. I want to give a shout out to my St. Augustine girls. And I want to give a shout out to my Girl Stock girls. I want to give a shout out to Miss Kathleen and Shanna for giving me and Lynn time at the table this evening. Some of y'all started coming in and y'all saw me over there talking to my gal Lynn, and they were so nice and respectful. They asked if they could interrupt, and I politely told them no. That I don't get to see her very often, and if they could let us have a few minutes. So thank y'all so much for respecting that. That really is huge. I appreciate that. All right, and Katie, thank you so much. You were sitting in the front. You moved. Okay. For being the voice. Thank you so much for being the voice. I have been the voice. I know what a hard job that is to round up all these women, right? And we're talking and we're hugging and all of that. And we're trying to get y'all in here because we got to get the meeting started. Thank you so much for your service this weekend. Okay. So tonight I have been asked to share with you step 1 and step 2. Okay. So that means that you're not going to get to hear my whole story. You're going to hear step 1 and step 2. That's what we're going to talk about, okay? And like Maury said, we were talking, and she was blessing me before the meeting started, and she said, well, Amanda, you know, it's your favorite subject, insanity and alcoholism. That is my favorite subject, right? So the first step talks about that we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. Was that true in my case? Let's find out. I had my first conscious drink of alcohol when I was 12 years old. It was a 6-pack of peach wine coolers. I proceeded to drink every single one of them and had the best night's sleep of my little life. I had my first blackout. I've been a blackout drinker from the get-go, right? Alcohol immediately did for me what I could not do for myself, right? And so what would happen when I was little, I would lay there in bed and I would worry and I would, oh Lord, Mama's getting married again. Oh Lord, Mama's getting another divorce. Oh Lord, now we're moving over here. What's going to happen to me? All the voices in my head wouldn't shut up, right? So when I had that first blackout, all the voices shut up. And I needed me some more of that. Now, I don't know if I became an alcoholic in that moment, but I will tell you every moment after that, all of my energy went into How can I get it? What am I going to have to do to get it? How long is it going to last? How much can I get? And I was off to the races, right? And that became a pattern for me all through middle school, high school. I'm a country girl. We lived outside of the city limits. There was always a field party, right? I had a great granddaddy that made the best scuppling wine on God's green earth, and moonshine was a thing. I mean, here we go. And then I was in the marching band in high school, and there was always a party after the football game, right? And I live in a small town, and there was a Hardee's on one end and a McDonald's on the other, about a 2-mile stretch, maybe 2.5 miles, right? So over here at the Hardee's, I'm mixing drinks in the car in the parking lot, and we get in the car and we drive through town and we wave at everybody at the Dairy Queen and we do the loop right there in front of the courthouse, and we go down, and by the time we get to McDonald's, I am empty and I got to mix another drink, right? And I had friends that either drank like I did, or I knew that their family drank, so when I would go in their house, I would steal their liquor, I would steal their alcohol, right? I was stealing liquor from my Meemaw. My grandfather was a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army, which meant Meemaw was an officer's wife, which meant we always had alcohol in the house, right? And she hid it under the kitchen cabinet. And I knew where she hid it. So I would get a Sprite bottle, and I would pour all the Sprite out, and I'd go under that kitchen cabinet, and I'd get that Bacardi 151 rum, and I'd fill my Sprite bottle up with that, and I'm sitting at the dinner table, and they think I'm drinking a Sprite, and I'm already trying one on, right? So then I got to go to the college that I had always dreamed of going to, and I go up there, and y'all, there was as many people on that campus as there was in my hometown. And I'm in the marching band of this major college, and I've got 415 brand new best friends, right? And Thursday night was the marching band practice, and Friday night was the party before the game. Saturday, I'm either celebrating or commiserating. Either way, I'm getting drunk, right? Sunday was pro football, and I was off to the races. And our big book talks about that many of us are gone beyond recall within a few years, and this is especially true of women, right? And that certainly was true in my case. And there were things that happened while I was there at that university, and I started gathering up my reasons while I was drinking, right? And then February 19th of 1991, that was a significant date in my life because that's the day my big mama died. You see, my big mama was my great-grandmother. She was about this tall, and she was round. And she was the one somebody in my life that unconditionally loved me. It didn't matter if I made a C in school. It didn't matter if I had wrecked Mama's car going to sneak off and see my boyfriend, right? Big Mama was going to let me in her house, and she was going to hug me, and she was going to tell me that she loved me and that it was going to be okay. And then she'd go in there and she'd make me a big old pan of welfare cheese, macaroni and cheese with some Conecuh sausage, and I was good, right? I had not been in that long that morning when I got the phone call that she had died, and I was too drunk to drive. It was at the top of the state, and I had to get to the bottom of the state. So I asked a girlfriend to drive me down there to my hometown. And somewhere in that drive, I started thinking about that preacher that used to preach up there, and he'd have that Bible, and he'd slamming that Bible on that pulpit, and he's telling me that to think the sin was the same as doing the sin, and you're going to hell. Well, I knew I was going to hell. How fast can I get there? Right? The next 100 some odd days, I only have 4 things, and my sponsor calls them snapshots. And I believe the God of my experience has allowed me to keep those 4 snapshots to remind me how far down the scale I had gone, right? So the first snapshot is I come to, and I'm in a concrete stairwell, and my head is hanging over a big, square, black industrial trash can. And I'm covered in puke, pee, poop, vomit, blood, whatever you can think of, and I have no idea where I am or how I got there. And my second snapshot is I come to, and I'm in a bedroom, and I'm laying in a bed, and I have no idea who that is laying next to me. And I'm checking the empties on this nightstand to see is there anything left in there, right? And then I'm going in the bathroom, and I'm looking for anything that's got alcohol in it. I mean cough syrup, NyQuil, Listerine, cologne, perfume, anything I can find. And then I'm walking in the kitchen, I'm praying they've got the real vanilla extract and not the imitation, right? The third snapshot I have is I come to, and it's loud, and my back's being scraped, and come to find out I was told there's an 8-lane highway in that town, and I have laid down in front of oncoming traffic trying to take a nap. And so it's the horns honking. They're honking to get me out of the road, and my friends have me by the ankles, and they're pulling me out of that highway, and it's the asphalt scratching my back. The last snapshot I have is we were in that college town, and we were in a college bar, and there's a band up there playing on a stage, and we're all kind of down here, and I've got a cigarette in this hand, and I've got a Miller Lite long neck in this hand, and I proceed to crap all in my pants. I take a puff, I take a swig, rock on. That's where alcohol had taken me, right? So I got to tell a little bit about what happened in order for me to get over to finish step one and get over to step two. So what happened was my mama showed up. Those 100 some odd days I had not talked to her or my Mima, and that was extremely unusual because I was close to both of them, right? So she showed up with a best friend, and she said, Amanda, I don't know what's going on with you. She said, I can take you to lunch and tell you I love you and I'll leave, or you can decide to get some help. So she left with one of the best friends, and the other best friend stayed with me, and what I told that woman was I might have written a few bad checks. Because you see, what would happen to me was when I would come to and I would finally get some alcohol in me, right, I still would want to feel better, right? I want to feel better. I don't feel good. I want to feel better, right? So what that looked like for me was I would go spend money. And it never occurred to me, I was never taught, I was never told that just because there's checks left in that checkbook, there might not be money in that account to back that up. I was writing hot checks all over the place. I was even going into Mississippi, right? And so at where I was staying, there was an outside mailbox thing, and all these brown official-looking envelopes were in it. And in the return address, it said, Federal Government. Now, if you're an alcoholic like me, if you don't look at it, you don't touch it, it ain't real. I'd walk by it. I'm not looking at it. It don't exist. So when I made that comment to that woman, she called a lawyer friend of hers, and I could tell by the tone of the conversation, Amanda, you're in a lot of trouble. You're in a lot of trouble, boo. You way too cute to be going to prison. I don't really know if you want to be somebody else's girlfriend. You better decide to get some help, right? So by the time Mama and her best friend came back, I said, yes, Mama, I want some help, right? Now, a lot of stuff happened in that moment, and we loaded up, and we left that town and went to my hometown and slept for about an hour and got up at dark 30 and drove another 4 hours to the bottom of the state. And on May 19th, 1991, I was in Providence Hospital on the 10th floor in a facility there, and I will never forget the sound of those doors closing behind me. I'll never forget that. Now, let me tell you something. May 18th, yes, Mama, I want some help. May 19th, we in that car. We driving down to Mobile, Alabama. I'm telling my mama what? I'm pulling off my acrylic fingernails. I'm telling her I'm going to go back to that town. I'm going to get me a job. Right? Forgot the pain of a few 24 hours ago. Okay? So a lot of things happened while I was in that facility. I was in that facility for 60 days. One of the things that happened was they made you see a psychiatrist while you're in there, and I made the mistake of telling that man I might have drank a little bit. Well, unbeknownst to me, he was a recovering alcoholic. So he recognized in me what he knew about himself, and he started sending me to them AA meetings, right? I didn't want to go to them AA meetings. The only good thing about that was it got me off the 10th floor, right? So they start sending us in the drunk bus to these meetings, and I'm going to these meetings, and y'all wanting to shake my hand, and you're wanting to hug me, and I don't want anything to do with you, and I don't know what you want from me, but I'm sitting in the back of that meeting, and I've got my knees up around my chin, right? And I've always had long hair, so I'd always put it in front of me, and I'd peek at you. I looked like Cousin It, sitting back there, right? And all I could hear was the differences, which my sponsor later called them technicalities, right? You might say something like, well, I was over there sleeping under that bridge. And I'd get all self-righteous, and I'd go, I never slept under a bridge. She'd go, Amanda, you woke up in a concrete stairwell out of a blackout. You don't know if you slept under a bridge or not. That's a technicality. You don't know. You might say something like, I was over there drinking out of that brown paper bag. I'd get all self-righteous. I never drank out of a brown paper bag. She'd be like, Amanda, you woke up in that bedroom, you was over there drinking the empties. They might have even had cigarette butts in it. You don't know if you drank out of a paper bag or not. That's a technicality. She killed me. Till one day at the Alano Club down there in Mobile, they took us to a speaker meeting, and a young woman got up there, and she started telling my story. She'd kind of grown up like I had. She'd certainly done the things that I had done. And she's talking about that she's happy today and that she's joyous and she's free. And y'all, she looks good. Her hair looks nice. She's wearing clean clothes. She's got a skirt on. She's probably wearing underwear, right? Was not always a priority, y'all. Time saver, I'm telling you. It's a women's conference. I can say that. Y'all know. My sponsor hurt my feelings the first time she called me a hoe when we did that 4-step, right? Amanda, you was hoeing. You just wasn't getting paid cash in hand. But anyway. So this woman's up there and she's sharing my story, right? And she's looking a certain way, and she's looking happy, and she's smiling, and there's a light in her eyes. And she's saying that she's an alcoholic. Could that be what's wrong with me? Could I be an alcoholic? That day my ears opened up, and I began to listen for the similarities instead of the differences. And here's what I know today. Our specifics may be different. Our details may be different. But if I talk about that I've had a hole in my soul, or that I've felt different since birth, every woman in this room knows what I'm talking about. So real quick, when I left that facility, I didn't know where I was going. My mother had gathered up all those brown official-looking envelopes. It was back in the days of paper sacks, and it was 2 big paper sacks full. And we knew that the least amount of time that I was looking at was 15 years at Julia Tutwiler Women's Prison, not far from where I live today. So when I walked out of that facility, my mother was standing there in the parking lot with a big, long, white piece of paper. So I go to her, and I'm talking to her, and she shows me this big, white, long piece of paper. And it's a contract. And it says things like, she's going to let me live with her. I got to pay $200 a month rent. She's going to buy the food. I got to cook 2 nights a week. She's going to let me use a car. I got to keep it clean and put gas in it. I got to get a job. She can't have no men over. I can't have no men over. And it was like that all the way down the paper until at the very bottom it said that she had went and paid all the hot checks and fees, and it was $10,000. And I had 10 years to pay that off, or I'd have to finish my time, right? I'm very grateful to say that I was able to make that amend in 8.5 years. So I'm standing in the parking lot outside this facility, and all of a sudden I have my first decision. Live with mama, go to prison. It took me a minute. I didn't always know what I was going to get when I went off with my mama, right? We didn't always live in the best of places. I knew if I went to prison, I was going to get a bed and 3 meals, right? But thank goodness I had that moment of clarity, and I chose to go live with my mother, and I started living this sober life outside of that facility. Now, the first time I went to that first group, the Level Plains group of Alcoholics Anonymous, I still remember walking in that room, that building. I can still see where everybody was seated, and right here, when you came in the door to the right, was a little bitty, short, silver-haired lady with glasses on, and there was an empty chair. And then there was another little bitty short lady with blonde curly hair. Now, that was my first sponsor to my right and my grand sponsor to my left. How do I know? Because she told me. I didn't have to ask nothing. I don't know why we say that. I don't make you ask. She told me she was my sponsor. And she told me something after that meeting I hope I never forget. She said, Amanda, you don't ever have to take another drink of alcohol ever again if you don't want to. and we're going to try to help you not want to, right? And that's where she took me to the big book, and she took me to the doctor's opinion, where I learned that I was not just a bad person, right? That I have a physical allergy, just like I'm allergic to penicillin, just like somebody that's allergic to strawberries, right? That I have a mental obsession. Now, what that looks like in my life is when I get an idea, I do not let it go. I'm holding on for dear life. Oh, my God, right? Ooh. And that I have a spiritual malady. And she put it to me like this. She said, Amanda, if you were eat up with cancer and they told you tomorrow down at the CVS they were going to be giving out these little blue pills to cure your cancer, would you go? I'm like, heck yeah, I'm going to be first in line, right? She said, okay, you have the disease of alcoholism, and this is your little blue pill. Now, I'm holding up our basic text. It's got a fancy cover on it, but this is our basic text, Alcoholics Anonymous. And in here is the spiritual program of action in ink, where I learned to live my life on a daily basis, right? So, could I see that I was powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable? Absolutely. And I began to start trying to live this sober life, right? Now she wants me to start praying, and now we got a problem. Because I don't want to pray. You see, I came into AA angry at God. God would never do anything for me except take away the people that I love, and I don't want to pray to him, and she's asking me to pray to him, and I don't want to pray to that. I don't want to pray to that. She said, Amanda, do you believe that I believe in God? And I said, well, yes, ma'am. And she said, might you be willing, possibly willing, to pray to my God? And I thought about that for a minute, and I said, okay, Gloria, I'll do that. So I would wake up in the morning. Thank you, glorious God, for waking me up today. Glorious God, please keep me sober today. I would lay down my head at night. Thank you, glorious God, for keeping me sober today. Glorious God, please watch over me through the night, right? Until we got to the official second step in the big book. Then she had me do an exercise, right? So she got this big yellow legal pad, and she had me draw a line down the middle of it. She said, okay, Amanda, on the left side of this, I want you to write down all the qualities you think about God today, and I want you to give it a name. Okay, Zeus. Hateful, mean, lightning, unforgiving, not gentle, no sense of humor, all those negative kind of words, right? She said, now, on this right side piece of paper, I want you to write down the qualities you would like for God to have. Give it a name. Okay, Santa Claus. Happy, joyous, free, fun, loving, gentle, kind, sense of humor. All those kind of words, right? And she had me cut that piece of paper down the middle. She said, now, Amanda, I want you to shred up that left side. And I shredded up that left side, and we put it in a pot, and we burned it. She said, and as that smoke was rising, she said, Amanda, that is you letting go of your old ideas. She said, now I want you to take that right side piece of paper, and I want you to tape it to your bathroom mirror, and that's the God I want you to start praying to every day. And I will tell you that exercise and the little black 24-hour day book were the two most important things that helped me get a relationship with a higher power that I'm then ready to abandon myself to in step 3, right? So, let me back up a little bit here, because I'm 1 and 2. I don't want to get over on that. I could. Okay. So, some things that I know today. First of all, let me tell you, I don't have that Santa Claus God of my experience anymore, right? That has developed over the years, right? But that's what I had to do in the beginning to be willing. I had to get a concept that I was willing to pray to. I had to get a concept that I'm willing to have a relationship with. So now let me bring it into today, right? When I'm looking at step 1 today, there are still things in my life that I'm powerless over. Am I going to let it make my life unmanageable? What do I mean by that today? Well, we can start with my mama. And she knows I love her. But I'm powerless over her, right? I've done at least 5 sets of steps on my mama in the last 34 years, right? Because that layer, that my onion keeps being peeled, right? What do I mean by that? Well, okay, I'm a big old Vidalia onion, okay? Y'all know what a Vidalia onion is? Okay, that's me, okay. So when you go to the Winn-Dixie or the supermarket, wherever you go, when you pick that onion up, it's got that brown crusty layer on the outside of it, right? Okay, well that's an analogy for the first time I went through the steps, okay? We got all the stuff off, right? Second time I go through the steps on whatever subject it is, or whether it's my sobriety, or whether it's a person, okay, not too, I can do that. You just take it off with your thumb, right? But I keep doing the steps because I'm trying to get to the middle of that onion. Why am I trying to get to the middle of that onion? Because that's the woman I believe the God of my experience would have me be. And y'all, let me tell you, the closer you get to the center of that onion, my experience is now we're using a knife, right? Because that's some deep stuff. I will share with you the first set of steps I ever did on my mother is not what it looked like the last set of steps I did with my mother, right? Whatever that is, as I'm peeling the layer of my onion, trying to be the sober woman of dignity and grace that I believe the God of my experience would have me be, it gets a little more in-depth. Y'all, some of those roots go deep, right? So, some other things I'm powerless over today. Let me talk about this real quick. I had a fall November the 19th of 2023, and it broke up lots of parts of my body, and some of the stuff I'm still dealing with today, even as I stand here, right? I have come to understand that I'm powerless over what that fall did to my body. I am powerless over chronic pain. I got to tell you, there were times in my life where I have known maybe somebody suffering with chronic pain or having chronic pain, and maybe I would have a little bit of self-righteousness, and I'd be like, well, all they're doing is laying there. Can they not pick up the phone and call me? Well, my experience with that is I sure couldn't. There's no way I can pick up that phone and text you. I'm right-handed. I could not text. It took all I could do to lay there in that recliner, trying not to hurt, and then to think about, okay, if I move this way for just a little bit, will it stop hurting? Can I take a nap? Can I just be still right here for a minute? No? Okay, that didn't move. Can I move this way just a little bit and maybe, oh yeah, right there. Can I just not move? Dear God, please don't let anybody come and talk to me. I don't want to do anything. Don't let the dog jump on me. Don't let me move from this place right here so I can just have a minute of peace and not pain. Absolutely powerless over pain. Now, I don't necessarily have a choice about whether or not am I going to allow that to make my life unmanageable. I have some choices with that, right? I certainly could sit there and become a whiner. I could focus on being a victim. That's not the way I was raised in AA, though. I'm taught to get in the solution. How can I get in the solution? Can I take some Tylenol? Can I take some ibuprofen? Can I take a nap? God forbid, can I ask for help? It'd been over 3 months, and I had not brushed my hair since the day of the incident. It was still in the scrunchy knot on top of my head from the day that I fell. And I told my husband, I said, look here, my head is itching. You got to help brush my hair, because I couldn't. I literally, y'all, I couldn't. And so he took the scrunchie out of my hair, and my hair didn't move. He said, I'm not touching that. Me being tender-headed certainly doesn't help things, right? And y'all see I have long hair, right? So I said, okay, how can I ask for help? What can I do, right? What can I do? So I called my hairdresser. She said, oh my God, Amanda. She said, can you get in the car? I said, I don't know. We can try. She said, well, get him to get you in the car and get over here. It took us about 45 minutes to get me in the car. He drove me to my hairdresser, and it took her and 2 shampoo girls over 3 hours to brush and comb out and wash my hair. I'm powerless. I'm powerless. Am I willing? Am I going to make the choice to let that make my life unmanageable? Right? What about my husband? God love him. He's here with me this weekend. He's a little earth person. Now, we've been together over 33 years, married over 25. He loves AA. He loves Al-Anon. He loves going with me. He loves everything about all this, right? But there have been times in our relationship when I've had to remind myself I'm powerless over him. Look, they just grown children. I mean, y'all know. I mean, really. So there are times when I'm powerless over him, right? Maybe he's wanting to do something and I don't want him to do it. Well, you know what? I'm powerless over him. I'm powerless over him. Am I going to let whatever's going on with him make my life unmanageable? Well, that's a choice. I could get up all in some drama. Let's have an argument. Woo! Let me get in here and cause some chaos. Woo! Right? We love some adrenaline. Right? Do I want to be that way today? No. Okay, so let's look at step 2 with some of this, right? So let's look at step 2 with my mama. Really, that's a third step thing. But let's look at okay, so if I'm believing in a power greater than myself, okay, and it says in the step 2 part, God is bigger. God is or isn't, right? So if I'm over here practicing these steps and I'm at step 2 and I know that I'm powerless over my mama and I'm not willing for whatever's going on with her to make my life unmanageable, well, then I get to step 2, God is or isn't. Do I believe that God is bigger? It's a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question. If my answer is yes, then I keep going, right? If I believe that she has a higher power, whether I know that power or not, if I believe that she has a higher power, then she has her own journey, and I need to just go off over here and do what I need to do and stop letting whatever's going on with her make my life unmanageable. What do I mean by making my life unmanageable? Am I over here sitting here thinking about her? Am I jumping in my time machine thinking about her? Am I jumping in my time machine and future tripping about, well, she's going to say this and I'm going to say that and she's going to say this and I'm going to say that and she's going to say this and I'm going to say that and I win? That is making my life unmanageable. Whatever that is stealing this moment from me. And anything that is stealing this moment from me is making my life unmanageable. If I've got something like that going on, I am not in God's will. We're told to pray for the knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out. Well, if I'm over here worrying about her and allowing her stuff to make my life unmanageable, I am not in God's will. And I'm not asking for the power to carry that out. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's look at the pain for a minute. Ooh. Because that pain is affecting how I'm viewing the world. That pain is the goggles that I'm looking through. That pain is the fog in my brain that is affecting whether or not I can remember to work this program. Right? It's affecting me. It's affecting me every single day of my life, even today. It is affecting me right now in this moment. Is God bigger? God is or isn't. Now, I'm not one of those people who believes that God did this to me. I have friends that talk to Dr. Paulo, and you know, when he wrote the acceptance paragraphs and all of that, some of that got edited out, and we are not in God's world. We are in the fallen world. So I'm not a big fan of that. Nothing happens in God's world by mistake. You may be right, but we're not there yet. We're in the fallen world. We're here on this earthly plane, and bad stuff happens. Humans have free will. That has nothing to do with the God of my experience. Now, what I do know about the God of my experience is the God of my experience can take any negative thing and make something good come out of it. I couldn't write. I'm right-handed. I couldn't text. I couldn't type. I couldn't. So you know what? I had an opportunity to grow closer to my higher power. I had an opportunity to come off of that judgmental throne that I had been on with people who had chronic pain, and they're just laying there, why can't they call me? The last thing I was thinking of was calling or texting anybody. I was trying to breathe, right? So do I believe that God is bigger than this pain that I'm living in? Some days it felt like a yes. Some days it felt like a no. I did the best I could on any given day, right? I knew that the God of my experience was working on stuff. I knew that the God of my experience could help me come out of this. I know that the God of my experience has been working behind the scenes, right? Well, how do I know this? Well, because I have a relationship with that higher power today. Now, this gets a little because some of this may sound like step 11 step, but it's not. It's step 2. Because step 2 is where we get the relationship with our higher power, right? Now, I was taught early on to be a seeker. From the moment I walked in that Level Plains clubhouse, they had a table in the back of the room that was covered up in books, right? And we were encouraged to go and read all those different books. We were encouraged, look, if you want to go to church, go to church. Take what you like and leave the rest, right? We were encouraged to explore different avenues. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's going to the beach. Maybe it's hiking in the woods. And I was taught to keep seeking until I find the places where I feel the nearness of my Creator. And then when I find those places, go back there often, right? So by now, I've learned how to incorporate the things that I've learned out there in those places with my Creator, and I had learned how to bring that to where I was, in that living room, in that recliner. Right? My husband can still light a candle. My husband could push play on the CD for me. Right? There were still things that I could do even with my limited mobility. Right? I can still look out the window. He would help me get to the backyard so that I could see the birds and the lizards and the butterflies and whatever that was. So I could have that one little moment of being in nature, because I know for me that's one of the places that's easiest for me to hear my Creator. Right? And so, what does that relationship look like? How often do you talk to your best friend? You know you texting them all day long. Girl, you ain't going to believe what she just said. Did you tell God what she just said? How often are you talking to your higher power? How often are you giving yourself to your higher power? How often are you putting things in your higher power's hands? Does your higher power knows what's going on with you? Right? Have I said it out loud? Have I y'all, God love her. I'm working with an alcoholic, and she's got over 11 years sober. And she said something that was a little off to me a couple of weeks ago. And I said, are you not thanking God for keeping you sober at night anymore? And she just went, huh. And I said, are you not asking God to keep you sober in the morning when you wake up? And she went, oh my God. She had stopped. Who told you to do that? I didn't tell you to stop that. Why in the world would you stop that? But see, we get to a good place and we forget how we got there, right? So what does my relationship look like with my higher power today? I can tell you what mine looks like. I know how that power shows up. I know how that power communicates to me. It was communicating with me and Lynn at the table right there outside the coffee shop this afternoon. It just communicated right here with me and Kimberly. What are the odds that I ask her to borrow her watch, and she says, a little lady named Peggy P gave me that. And I said, you mean Peggy Purser, the happy alcoholic from Orlando? And she says, yes. And I said, oh my God, that's my sponsor. That's God, y'all, in case you don't know. And I love the fact that means little Miss Peggy is here with us, because she loved being my road dog, and she'd have been right here in the middle of all this, right? Okay. So so the other ways, how am I bringing the second step in with my husband? How am I bringing the second step in with my children, right? What are the things that I'm powerless over today? What are the things in my life today that I'm allowing to make my life unmanageable? Because it's a choice. And do I really believe that whatever that is, that God is bigger? Okay, if I believe that, do my actions show it? My name is Amanda Brown. I'm a grateful alcoholic. Thank you for letting me share.